The best way to store ugu seeds if they're already out of the pods and you don't want to plant yet is to bury them in the ground. Just bury them in your soil and cover them up. Then you, of course, you must have already put something here. So this will buy you time in about 2 weeks maximum 2 weeks, but you can still stretch it to about 3 weeks. So that will buy you time to start sprouting or even growing leaves. You can transplant them then to the permanent site. So if you leave them out, they will dry out, but if you bury them, you keep them alive.
Good day everyone. Today we are going to be talking about how to plant ugu seeds, which is pumpkin seeds. These are my ugu seeds. These are my ugu seeds, dried for planting. So how do we plant these ugu seeds? Here you can see it has two ends, a flat end and a pointed end. It has a flat end and a pointed end. So you will plant the seed putting the pointed end in the soil because that is where the roots grow out from. But when you plant it up, when you plant it like this, the roots will come out from on top and it will not grow on time because it's not touching the soil. So I will teach you on how to plant the ugu seeds using this soil as an experiment. So this is it, the pointed end. You can see the pointed end. So I put it here. I plant like 3 of them, not knowing which one will grow. You can see the pointed end. And that is it. I cover with the soil. So I'll use another soil to experiment. This is the pointed end. This is the pointed end. So this is my hole already dug. So this is the pointed end. I put like 3 in a triangular form and cover. So this is an example of the one that grew. You can see it grew from the pointed, the roots came out from the pointed end. So when you put it in the ground, it will grow from the pointed end. This is the flat side. This is the pointed end growing roots. And this is our ugu vegetable. So I'm going to show you. This is a 1 week old ugu seed that grew. You can see it grew from the pointed end, and these are the leaves. See another one. 1 week old ugu. This is another one. This is another one. This is another one.
This is my new vegetable farm. Precisely, I planted fluted pumpkin ugu. I planted them on raised bed that is heavily mulched with grasses. Now you might be wondering, why did I choose using grasses to mulch? In this part of the southeastern part of Nigeria, Enugu, we have abundance of tall grasses, and we have little or no use for them. So people just cut them down and burn them and all that. And then again, there is a major problem during the dry season. Water scarcity is a big issue, and because of that, people don't really grow vegetables anymore, because to get water to do normal things is a challenge, let alone using them to irrigate crops. So I found use for these grasses. What I did was to create my raised beds and heavily mulch, so that the thickness of the mulch is about 10 centimeters each. Of course, this is I created the path to walk around. So I have about 12 beds here, and this bed I have planted fluted pumpkin, that is ugu, vegetable that is very, very common around this part of the country. Now, what I did was to, after mulching, create a space, little hole, so that I can get to the bottom where the soil is, just like what I want to demonstrate now. I just create a hole, so you can see that it's as, the mulch is as thick. So that's the soil there, and if you measure the thickness, it's about 10 centimeter or thereabout, heavily mulched. And the whole essence of this is to allow these beds to soak in water, and it is very, very difficult to lose that water. So for a very, very long time, the beds, they retain water, so the roots of the crops are able to get them. Now, lesser land, dry grasses that they will usually, burn up, I'm using them to mulch to help me retain water during the dry season, such that when I want to irrigate, I use little amount of water to irrigate. And you also know that this heavily mulched area will prevent the growth of weed, that will prevent competition with my crops. And so I've been able to achieve two things, mainly to conserve water during the dry season. Many persons don't grow vegetable around here during the dry season because they think it is very, very difficult. Apart from not having water regularly, the weather itself is also harsh. But I've been able to create an environment that I think will enable my crops to really, really thrive. So if you are in an area where you have these grasses, tall grasses and all that, and you are looking at them as if they are something that you cannot use or they are waste, I think the mentality should change. You can actually use them to mulch and then create something out of nothing. So with this, I hope I've been able to encourage some persons to venture into this, and I will still continue to share my experience about this. Thank you. This is one of my vegetable gardens. This is fluted pumpkin ugu. I'm here to show you today the best species of ugu that we have around here in the southern part of Nigeria. When people want to grow ugu, what they look out for is the sizes of the leaves that are produced. And I'm glad to share with you that I have what I would call the best species in the southern part of Nigeria. Let's take, for example, this is a particular leaf. You can see how wide it is. Now this stalk has about 5 leaves. I'll call them the pentavalent, the one that has about 5 leaves coming out, pentafoliate, so to speak. Interestingly, look at one of the leaves, very, very wide. Now in comparison with my palm, this is my palm, comparing it with the size of the leaves, you can see that the only one of the leaves is actually wider than my palm. So in fact, I swallowed up my palm, and my palm is actually very, very. So if you measure from the length of this, it is up to about 10 centimeters in width, not even the length. The length is up to about 20 centimeters, so to speak. But if you also look at the stalk, in addition to that, the stalk that carry the leaves, look at the stalk that is carrying the leaves. They are very, very massive. My finger breadth is about 2.5 centimeters, but this is larger than even my finger breadth. So let me zoom closely to that. Okay, fine. You see the stalk, very, very massive. So if you are going to plant ugu for commercial purpose, since it is the leaves that are usually sold, it is important you get it right, because the same amount of energy you expend growing vegetables or ugu vegetables with small leaves is also the same amount of energy you dissipate trying to grow even this one. So for the purpose of productivity, efficiency, it is better you choose the right seed. So this is the best if you are going to go into commercial ugu farming. For even those who want to grow them at the back of their houses, in their garden, it is also important, and there is no harm if you even choose this. For the purpose of commercial ugu farm, this is the best. So many persons don't know the difference between the male and female ugu, or they probably don't even know that there is male or female. Fluted pumpkin or ugu is a dioecious plant. It means it has a male and a female, and they both carry flowers. The reason for this video is so that you will not be expecting pods to come out from the male flowers. So how to identify them is very simple. In front of me now is the male ugu plant, and I want to show some features. If you observe, it has very many flowers, and they are tiny. They are in a stalk, and the stalk, they are found on the dendrites or on dendrites. So when you see a plant, an ugu plant like this with multiple flowers, with tiny stalk and dendrites, this is the male plant, and it's never going to produce pods. So don't expect pods from this. We're also going to show us the female later, but you will see that it's very different, it's distinct. The flowers will be carried by the fruit, you will see, but here you see this, look at the flower, is carried by a tiny stalk, and the stalk is on them, and you always have multiple dendrites like this. You just see them, there are very many. So once you see this, you know that this is the male plant. For those that are into commercial, that commercially grow ugu, or they grow ugu for money, this is of little economic value. At best is to just sell the leaves, but if you want productivity, you don't have to allow this to keep occupying space. You could remove it and replant. We are going to show us the female plant next, so that you will see the major difference. Now this in front of me is the female ugu plant, and I'll show you a few things. Number one, the leaves are wider. I will show us another one where the leaves can even be as wide as my palm, or even wider. I mean, just one of the leaf will be, one segment of a leaf will be wider than my palm. But look at the flowers. They have flowers too, but the flowers are bigger, and they are not just carried by tiny stalk, but the flowers are like the crown on top of the head of the fruit. This is what is going to develop into the big pods later. So this is the female. If you look at the stalk, it's usually very big. Some can be 5 times this. I will show us more stalks later and more leaves, but this is just very close to the male. This is the male here, and this is the female. So the flowers are usually bigger. This is another one. This one is already developing into the pod. So there are other ones like that. I'll show us some more females, but the difference is very clear. You have dendrites, you don't have dendrites on those ones. The stalks are bigger for the female, and the leaves are wider for the females. Whereas the males, they will just have tiny leaves, but you will just see a lot of dendrites. This is a female ugu plant. I want to just show us this leaf. You see, the leaves can be as wide. This is just one leaf. It can be as wide as this. This is my palm, and comparing is one of the segment of a particular leaf is even wider than my palm. So it's the female that have very, very wide leaves and very large stalk, because they are the ones that will produce the pod eventually. So this is a female ugu plant. If you look carefully, this one has up to about 4 maturing pods already from a particular plant. Just one plant has about 4 maturing pods. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is there's another smaller one that's coming, making it about 5. Today we are going to show you how to cut ugu the right way. A lot of persons grow these vegetables in their compounds. Some even grow them in their farm on the commercial scale and all that. But today we want to actually show us how to harvest it properly so that you can have more yield. And we'll also show you some things that you are not expected to do, because it can lead to the death of the crop or a low yield. Now this is the vegetable. They are all looking fresh. These ones did not be harvested before, so we are going to show how we can harvest, especially for the first time. How you cut it matters. For example, this is a vine. Now in the literature they will tell you count the first 10 leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and cut thereafter. Well, that's mainly academic, but the secret is this: when you get the vine like this, as long as this is about maybe 6 weeks old or thereabout, that's when you cut it very, very first time. Always look for the sprouts that are closer to where it grew from. So that's why people just say the first 10 leaves, because within that first 10 you definitely will have sprouts. Now this is the sprout that we are looking for. This is the new sprout. So when you are going to cut, you cut after the sprout. Sometimes you can have about 2-3 sprouts. Just look for the least developed sprout and cut thereafter. But this is one of these sprouts now. Look at it. It's here. So if I want to cut now, I'll just cut after the sprout. And this is what I'm going to use. Now I'll leave this in here. In about 2 weeks this sprout would develop to something like that, and then I can cut. Let's also look at another one. This is yet another. Okay, for example, this vine has more than one sprout. You can see within the first 10 you have sprout. This is a sprout, this is a sprout, and all that. So I can choose to either cut from here, which is a small, or I can decide to compromise. This is a very good sprout, but for the purpose of more yield, I'll just cut, because in 2 weeks time, I'll keep this. In 2 weeks time, this sprout and this sprout will be ready for harvest. Now I want to show us something that we shouldn't do when harvesting ugu leaf, but many persons do it. Now this is a vine. For some persons, they will just pluck the leaves. This is unacceptable. You shouldn't do this. It is better to cut the vine than to just pluck the leaf, because if you pluck the leaves this way, this vine will still remain, and more nutrient will still be diverted to this one, and there's no more leaf to produce more leaves. No more leaves like that. I've removed everything here to produce, so it will just remain like this. With time, imagine if you do this whole plant and leave them like this, with time it will just die off. The best thing you are expected to do is, where there is sprouts, you just cut from there, and that will be it. For example, now this, I'll just cut off this one. This one is not useful now. But if you have a vine and you just cut after the sprout, that sprout will in 2 weeks time give you more vines and you have more yield. So the best way to cut ugu and have yield is always cut after the new sprout. Today we are going to show you something that I've been wanting to really discuss. We are harvesting ugu leaves today. These are the ugu leaves that we have harvested, and this is the farm just behind me here. Sometimes you just see people harvesting ugu leaves and they will just fold them and put them into bags. So today I want to really show us how to care for the vines that you have harvested so that the quality will be preserved as you are taking them to the market. Now what I like to do is to get a very large bag. Like this is about a 300 kg bag, or if you like you can use 500 kg, 600 kg. The bigger the better. All you need to do is to tear the bag open so that you can spread it like a sheet. You just spread it down. This is what I have done here. I will just carry the vines and just place them straight. I won't fold them. An example is this. These are vines that we are just harvesting now inside the farm. So you just, as you are harvesting, I decided to put this so that I will use it to demonstrate what I mean. You see how straight they are. There's no need to fold, because when you fold, it will cause the leaves to be damaged. So you just lie them straight, just horizontal that way. Same here. So these are the vines. I'll just lie them straight. I can always pick. You see? There are more vines coming here. Pick them. You lie them straight until this spread sheet is full. You can see this one now. I've already loaded it full. So what I'm going to do is just to tie the end here. Tie the end here. Come to the beginning here. Do same. So you can see that it's still preserved. Now, of course, you have this gap at the middle. You have this gap at the middle. You can now tie like this. I will just demonstrate that. I have some ropes here. So this is what I'm going to do now. I just create a hole here for me to take this around it. Okay, so you can see that my bag of harvested ugu leaves is ready to go to the market. It's as easy as that. You can see that the vines are already, they are still preserved. If I want to open it up, just loosen, and you start to use it. Same thing with this. If I had this full, what I would do is to just pick this end, and you just tie. You do this, pick this end, pick the other end, and you just tie. All right, tie. And so your vines, they are preserved. You can carry this like this, but this one is not full yet. So this is just to demonstrate how best to care for ugu vines that you have harvested, so that these ones now, they can still last, even without putting them in the refrigerator or whatever. They can still last about 4 to 5 days and they'll still be fresh. But if you muddle them up and put them inside the bag, it will just be all rumpled up. So I'm sure you have learned something today. The best way to care for ugu vines after you have harvested them. The focus of the video today is to talk about the pots, staking or not staking? Which is better? I decided to leave some part of my farm to allow the pods to grow on the ground to see if actually there's any difference between when I stake and when I don't stake. And interestingly, there's a very large pod that is growing. Even without support, it's growing very, very well, and the length is increasing. Although some of them were staked and they are also growing pods. But for now, I've found no difference between the sizes of pod from the ones that are staked and the ones that are not staked. These ones are still on the ground and they are doing very, very well. For example, this is another pod that is growing very well, and that is another pod that is growing very well. Now let's go to a place where I have pods growing from the ones that are staked. For example, this one was staked. Now this is a pod that is growing that has been staked. Let me remove this so that I can see clearly. Now if you compare the size of this pod and the ones we found on the ground, the ones on the ground are even larger than this. But let's see at the end of the day, from my own experience, even before now, there's really no difference between staking and not staking. But I will appreciate for those who have been growing fluted funky, what is your experience? Kindly share your experience on the comment section. Do you think it's better to stake, to have larger pods or more pods, or you could just leave there? Imagine you having this kind of farm and it's 1 hectare. How can you stake? And if you are staking, you are going to be using sticks. It means you are going to be encouraging more and more deforestation, which is not eco-friendly. And the concept these days is that we should try as much as possible to reduce deforestation. So if I leave my fluted funky pots on the ground, if I can do as good as when I stake, what is the essence of staking? When I have to expend energy to stake or pay labor to stake and to even, to cause more deforestation and all that. Rather than do that, I'll just not do that. Eco-friendly to leave your pots on the ground and all that. So please share your experience on the comment section. How to identify a matured ugu pod. Usually it takes about 12 to 14 weeks to maturity, but at times you may lose track of the date. But there is a better way to know if the pod is matured. So we are going to be showing us a matured pod. This is a matured pod, but you may not know mere looking at it. There is a simple test that can be performed for you to ascertain if it is matured. The pod has ridges that are usually elevations from the main pod itself. The best way to ascertain if it is matured is to compress the 2 ridges and see. If you can compress them together, it means it is not matured. But for this, you cannot do that because it's very hard. You cannot compress. You may even start feeling pain. But let us go to the one that is not matured. Then we'll come back to this again so you spot the difference. This is an immatured pod, irrespective of the size. It is immature because I can compress the ridges. If you are not careful, it will even just break off if you apply pressure, like what has just happened. So you can, if you don't want this to happen, you could just mount a little pressure and see. If you can compress at all, it is not matured. And the extreme is what happened here. Before you know it, it will fracture like this. Well, so let's go back to the matured one so you see. You see, no matter how much pressure I mount, I can't break the way the other immatured one was broken. So this is the simple test to check if the ugu pod is matured. You might ask, why not just allow the leaves to dry out? The reason why you need this test is because a particular plant, one particular plant can give rise to several pods, and they will all mature at different times. So it is important you remove the one that is matured, so that the immatured ones can, the whole energy to feed the immatured ones can be concentrated on the immatured ones. So I'm going to remove this pod later because it is already matured, so that the plant can feed the immatured ones so that they can quickly come to maturity. This pod is still on the same plant, whereas there's another pod the other way. So it is important I remove this so that the other ones can be fed. Another test is the leaves will start turning yellow, but like I said, the most reliable one still remains testing or compressing the ridges.